On the 8th of March, 2026, 12 years to the day after Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished with 239 people, the company searching for her made an announcement. Quote, "Despite all that effort, we haven't been able to find it. 12 years, 140,000 square kilometers of seafloor mapped, an area the size of New York State, and the largest search in aviation history went home empty. Again. But this story is not about the search that failed. It is about a sound. Because on the night she disappeared, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, a network of underwater microphones was listening. Their recordings sat in the dark for a year before anyone could even collect them. And when a French scientist finally analyzed what they had heard, his findings never made it into the official report. Those recordings are public now, and they suggest something that should stop you cold. For 12 years, everyone may have been listening for her in the wrong ocean. March 8, 2014. Kuala Lumpur International, just after midnight. A Boeing 777 bound for Beijing taxis into the dark with 227 passengers and 12 crew. At 41 minutes past midnight, she lifts off into a clear night. 239 people settle in for the red eye. Most are heading home to Beijing. Grandparents, young couples, entire families. A party of Chinese artists returning from an exhibition. Crews of construction workers at the end of long contracts abroad. An ordinary cabin, dimming its lights for an ordinary night over the South China Sea. 38 minutes later, at the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, Captain Zahriye Ahmad Shah says 5 words to Kuala Lumpur Control. "Good night, Malaysian 370. They are the last words anyone will ever hear from the airplane. 2 minutes later, her transponder goes dark. To air traffic control, Flight 370 simply ceases to exist. Military radar watched a ghost turn back, hard across the Malay Peninsula, up the Strait of Malacca, and out of coverage forever. And that should have been the end of the evidence. It nearly was. Except that one satellite, parked high over the Indian Ocean, kept hearing something almost nothing. An automatic electronic handshake from the aircraft, once an hour, like a heartbeat with no voice. 7 of them. Engineers did something with those 7 handshakes that had never been done before. Improvised it in a crisis, from a signal that was never designed to navigate anything. From timing delays measured in microseconds and a frequency wobble caused by the aircraft's own motion, they drew a line on the Earth, the 7th arc. The flight, they concluded, ended somewhere along it, in the southern Indian Ocean, one of the emptiest places on this planet. Everything that followed, every ship, every sonar pass, every dollar of the largest search in aviation history, rested on that line. The 7th arc was not a clue, it was the clue. And for 12 years, nobody could afford to ask what happens if it was read wrong. What came next was the most expensive absence in history. First, the surface search. 60 ships and aircraft from 26 nations, sweeping millions of square kilometers of open water. They found garbage, fishing gear, whale carcasses, not one piece of the airplane. Those first weeks were a fever of almost. Oil slicks that turned out to be ship fuel, floating objects on satellite photos that turned out to be lost cargo, or nothing at all. Every morning a new coordinates flash, every evening another empty patch of sea. The world learned how much junk an ocean holds, and how completely an airliner can refuse to be part of it. Then they went under. For 3 years, Australia led a sonar survey of 120,000 square kilometers of seafloor along the arc. Mountains no human had ever mapped, valleys 3 miles down. they found 2 shipwrecks from the 1800s, not the 777. In 2018, a private company took over, Ocean Infinity, with a fleet of autonomous submarines and a contract that paid nothing unless they found her. They searched another swath. Nothing. In 2025, they came back with better robots. 151 days at sea. And on the 12th anniversary, this March, they called it. The chief executive chose his words carefully. It was important to take advantage of every piece of information and data available and go back. But despite all that effort, we haven't been able to find it. Understand what that sentence actually means. It does not mean the ocean is too big. They have now looked carefully almost everywhere the 7th arc says she should be. When a search that thorough finds nothing, there are only 2 possibilities. Either she slipped through some unlucky gap in the sonar shadows, or she was never inside the search area at all. For years, the first answer was the respectable one. The second sounded like conspiracy. Then the recordings surfaced. The deep ocean is not silent. Sound travels farther in water than almost anywhere on Earth. A loud enough event can be heard across an entire ocean basin, thousands of miles away. We know this because the world is always listening. To police the nuclear test ban treaty, a global network of hydrophones hangs in the deep sound channel. Ears built to hear a bomb on the far side of the world. Each station is elegantly simple, a ceramic ear suspended in the layer of ocean where sound bends and carries. The deep sound channel, a natural whispering gallery that wraps the planet. Drop a pin in it off Australia, and the ripple can still be read off Africa. And if you doubt what those ears can do, there is a proof, and it is devastatingly precise. November 2017. An Argentine Navy submarine, the San Juan, vanished in the South Atlantic with 44 crew. 2 hydrophone stations, one at Ascension Island, one at Crozet, thousands of miles apart, caught a single violent sound that afternoon. At 13:51 Universal Time, the analysis could resolve 2 implosions, 329 milliseconds apart. A year later, searchers found the San Juan on the seabed, less than 20 kilometers from where the microphones said she would be. 3,000 feet down. The ocean had told the truth to anyone equipped to hear it. So here is the uncomfortable question that has hung over MH370 from the beginning. A 250-ton aircraft hitting the ocean at speed releases catastrophic energy. The listening network was on. Cape Leeuwin was practically pointed at the search zone. What did it hear that night? Almost nothing. Researchers have combed those recordings for a decade. Cardiff University ran the latest sweep in 2024. And along the 7th arc, at the time the fuel ran out, there is no convincing crash signal. One faint candidate on one station, too weak to better search on. But here is what most retellings leave out. One strange signal was flagged almost immediately. Within months of the disappearance, Alec Duncan's team at Curtin University in Perth pulled a faint, low-frequency arrival off their recorders, and its bearing pointed northwest, far from the arc. It disagreed with the satellite math so completely that it was set aside. Most likely geological, they said. A seafloor event, a coincidence of timing, the ocean clearing its throat. There are 2 ways to read that silence. Maybe she entered the water gently, a glide, a ditching, quiet enough to hide from the microphones. Or maybe the microphones weren't the problem. Maybe everyone was asking them about the wrong patch of ocean, because the treaty network was not the only set of ears in the Indian Ocean that night. And this is the part of the story almost nobody has heard. A French oceanographer named Jean-Yves Royer has spent his career listening to the planet breathe. Seafloor earthquakes, cracking ice, the long conversations of whales. His instrument is a network called OHASISBIO, moorings of autonomous hydrophones hung in the deep sound channel of the Indian Ocean. And by pure timing, just weeks before Flight 370 disappeared, his team had planted them fresh at 6 sites across that ocean. But these instruments had no antennas. They did not phone home. Every sound they captured was written to memory and held in the cold and the dark until a ship could physically pull them back up. That took a year. So while 60 ships were sweeping the surface in the spring of 2014, the most complete recording of that ocean on that night was sitting on the seabed, unheard. When the network came up in early 2015, there was a casualty. The one hydrophone closest to the presumed crash area, northeast of Amsterdam Island, was lost during recovery. The single best witness never made it home. Royer analyzed what survived, and in the early hours of March 8th, he found 5 candidate acoustic events, 5 sounds, in the window when a Boeing was somewhere over that ocean, out of fuel. And 2 of those 5 matched something researchers in Australia had flagged years earlier, a low-frequency signal that reached a recorder off Western Australia a little over an hour after the aircraft's final satellite handshake. Roughly the time sound needs to cross that ocean. 2 independent networks, the same anomaly. And when analysts projected that signal backward to its origin, the answer did not land on the 7th arc. It did not land anywhere near it. It pointed toward a region called the Chagos-Laccadive Ridge, southwest of India, thousands of kilometers from where every ship, every submarine, and every dollar has been looking. An American acoustician has been working this problem since 2014. David D'Alosto of the University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. His conclusion is one sentence, and it is the thesis of everything you are watching. If it was detected, it wasn't on the 7th arc. And here is the detail that should genuinely bother you. Royer sent this analysis to French and Australian officials in late 2016, while the seafloor search was still running. It never appeared in the final report. The recordings that disagreed with the map were left out of the story. Until now. Let's be fair to the people who made that call, because this is not a story about villains. The satellite mathematics had been checked by independent teams on 3 continents. The debris was drifting ashore exactly where the southern arc predicted it should. Against all that, they had one ambiguous sound from a seismically noisy ridge, caught on instruments built to listen for whales. If you were spending public money on ships, you would have chosen the Ark too. Almost everyone did. So now there are 3 witnesses, and they do not agree. This is where we stop telling and start weighing. Because you deserve the honest version, not the exciting one. Witness 1. The satellite handshakes. The 7th arc is real mathematics, checked by independent teams for a decade. And the final frequency data even sketches the ending. A descent so steep and fast the aircraft may have been falling at more than 15,000 feet per minute. If she flew until the fuel ran out, the timing puts her on that line. To put her near Chagos instead, you need the handshake analysis to be wrong in ways nobody has demonstrated, or the flight to have ended far earlier than the pings imply. Witness 2. The ocean itself. 33 pieces of that airplane have washed ashore. Reunion, Mozambique, Tanzania. Australia's Marine Science Agency put a real 777 flaperon in the water off Tasmania and measured how it actually drifts. Their answer: the debris pattern fits a crash near 35 degrees south, on the arc. Though even that witness mumbles. The barnacles growing on the flaperon tell a temperature story, and some analyses read them as warmer, more tropical water than the deep south. The ocean's testimony has a crack in it. Witness 3, the sound. One event on one surviving station pointing at Chagos. Its own caveats in plain sight. The nearest microphone was lost. The ridge it points to is seismically alive. The ocean floor there clears its throat all the time. And a gentle ditching might have made no sound worth hearing anywhere. 3 witnesses. The satellite says the arc. The drift mostly says the arc. The sound says somewhere else entirely. And the sound is the only witness whose testimony has barely been examined. So here is our verdict. Ours from the record, not a court's. The weight of evidence still favors the 7th arc. But a 12-year, 140,000 square kilometer silence is itself evidence. And the probability that the arc was read wrong is no longer small enough to ignore. The wrong place hypothesis has earned the one thing it never had: the right to be tested. Notice what tonight's question does not touch. Who flew her there and why? The deleted flight simulator route that ended in the Southern Ocean, the silence from the cockpit. Where the evidence points on that question, we spent an entire film examining. It's linked below, and nothing tonight changes it. But WHO explains the beginning of that night. It has never explained where the ending is. And the beautiful thing is, testing it is cheap. You would not need a fleet. Cardiff's researchers proposed it years ago. Detonate small controlled charges along the candidate sites, listen on the same stations, and calibrate exactly what those microphones could and could not have heard that night. The San Juan searchers did precisely that, and it found a submarine. Which brings us to what happens next. Ocean Infinity says its commitment has not ended, their words. And reporting from Malaysia points to a new search window opening as soon as this November. The question is no longer whether anyone will look again. It is whether this time they will let the ocean's own recording help decide where. And that decision is being made now. In meeting rooms this year, between a government that owns the file and a company that owns the robots. Run the calibration first, and November's ships sail with their ears open. Skip it, and the next empty grid will prove nothing at all. Again, because somewhere under that ocean, there is an answer. 239 answers. 12 years of anniversaries have come and gone for the families. Every March 8th, a door that will not close, and finding her would answer more than where. The wreckage itself is testimony, whether the flaps were set for a deliberate glide or ripped away in a dive, whether anyone was at the controls at the end. 2 square meters of the right debris field would close arguments that have burned for 12 years and give 239 families a place on the map to grieve toward. And if this year has taught this channel anything, it is that the ocean gives things back when people refuse to stop asking. This summer, a robot found an airliner that had been missing for 74 years, with the name still painted on her hull. 74 years for the Clipper Endeavour, 2 years for Air France 447, 4,000 meters down, 1 year for the San Juan, 20 kilometers from where the microphones pointed. The sea keeps what it takes. It does not keep it forever. If the ships sail in November, we will follow every mile of it. From the record, with the receipts on screen, the moment there is something real to show you. So before you go, which witness do you believe? The satellite, the drift, or the sound? Tell us below. We read every verdict. If this investigation earned it, the like button is how more people find her story. And the file on this channel stays open until she is found. Subscribe and be there the day it closes. The next investigation is already on your screen.